Okay, let's get into it. Today, we are doing a deep dive into a topic that really it applies to everyone. It doesn't matter what you do, how old you are, or, where you are on your journey.
hmm
We're talking about how to improve yourself, and we've gone through a stack of sources here, all focused on, well, sustainable personal growth. And they boil it all down to this really powerful, actionable framework.
10 core principles.
10 core principles, yeah. And they're all built on this one fundamental idea, which is taking small steps.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because when you say personal growth, most people's minds they leap to these huge, life-altering actions.
Right, grand gestures.
Exactly. I need to quit my job, move halfway across the world, start some massive new venture tomorrow, completely reinvent myself over a weekend.
And that ambition, that scale is often the very first reason people just stop before they even start. It's too overwhelming.
It is. It's paralyzing.
So that's really where we have to begin today, by just, taking apart some of those common myths about what improvement actually is. And the sources are so clear on this. Self-improvement does not require a ton of money. So that barrier's gone right away.
Which is huge for most people.
It's huge. It doesn't require some kind of special skill that only a few people have. It's not just for, I don't know, gurus or CEOs. And I think this is the most important one. You definitely don't need some perfect 5-year strategic plan printed out.
No gold lettering required.
None. And what's so interesting to me here is just how simple the starting point is. And this is, I think, the key thing we want you to grab onto right at the top.
The foundation.
The foundational requirement is it's all internal. It's just a decision.
That's it. A simple, quiet decision to grow. A decision to just try.
Yeah.
And, most critically, a commitment to taking the smallest possible steps, but doing them consistently.
So this focus on smallness, it kind of removes all the excuses we build up, both internal and external.
It really does.
But wait a second, I have to push back on that a little. Because, most productivity experts, they say, you need that plan, you need a map, a clear destination. If I'm just taking small steps, but I don't really know where I'm going, isn't that just kind of aimless?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of the difference between, say, velocity and momentum.
Okay.
The big plans, they aim for velocity moving really fast in a very specific direction. Right. But they often lead to burnout because the initial effort, the energy required, is just massive.
Right, you flame out.
You flame out. This framework argues that real improvement is about building momentum. The decision to grow is the direction. By focusing on taking one tiny step today, you guarantee you're moving. You can always adjust your course tomorrow.
So the mission here for this deep dive is to show that the myth that improvement means these big, earth-shattering changes is just wrong.
It's completely wrong.
Yeah.
The reality is that real sustainable improvement starts small. It starts simple. It starts with something you can do right now, not next week, not when you buy the fancy new journal, today.
I love that. It shifts the focus away from this idea of massive capability and onto something we can all do, which is simple, repeatable consistency.
Exactly.
So yeah, let's unpack these 10 ideas. They really do form a complete framework. And I think very fittingly, we have to start not with the action plan, but with the foundation of it all, the mindset.
The inner dialogue.
The inner dialogue.
Okay, let's jump straight into the psychology of this, because it all starts here.
Yeah.
Principle 1 is be kind to yourself.
And everyone hears that and they nod along, right?
Of course.
Be kind to yourself.
Of course, but actually putting it into practice. That's where the struggle is. It's universal. And it highlights what the source material calls the self-talk paradox.
Can you explain that paradox? What is that?
Well, we're wonderful advocates for other people, for our friends, our family, our colleagues. If a friend makes a mistake, what do? We offer grace. We offer perspective, support.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You'll get it next time.
Exactly. But when we stumble, when we turn that lens inward, we become our own absolute harshest critics. It's brutal. We hold ourselves to standards that we would never, ever dream of applying to someone we care about.
It is brutal, and the sources list some of these common phrases that just stop progress in its tracks, and they're so recognizable. I'm not good enough, or I can't do this because I failed at it last time.
That's a big one.
Or the real killer, I always make mistakes. That kind of constant internal condemnation, it just puts you in this defensive crouch.
And if we look at the bigger picture of what it takes to make a change, that negative self-talk, it isn't just unpleasant. It's a direct inhibitor of change on a physiological level.
What do you mean by that?
When you are relentlessly critical of yourself, your body responds by releasing stress hormones, cortisol. It triggers your fight or flight mechanism. And when your brain is focused on survival, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part you need for planning, for conscious decisions, for learning new things, it basically just, it shuts down, or at least it operates really poorly.
Wow. So if I'm stressed out and beating myself up, my brain's ability to actually learn the new habit I'm trying to build, or even plan the next small step,
Yeah.
it's actively being blocked.
Yes. Neurologically, change becomes almost impossible in that
If
state.
you're your own worst enemy, literally.
Which is why the solution has to be this fundamental internal shift. It's about gentle, positive reframing. You have to coax your brain out of that defensive, stressed out state and into the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest state where learning can actually happen.
Okay, I love the reframes, but this is where I can see people getting stuck. When I try to say things like, I am trying or I am learning, how do I stop that little voice in my head from saying, oh, that's just a cop-out, you're making excuses? How do I ensure that self-compassion doesn't just become, a justification for being lazy?
That's the real nuance of this principle, isn't it? It's crucial to understand that self-compassion is not self-indulgence.
Yeah.
It's pragmatic self-management. So instead of the negative, you replace it with phrases that are focused on the process and the effort. I am learning, I am trying, and my favorite, I can grow step by step.
So it's not saying I'm perfect, it's saying I'm in motion.
Exactly. These statements acknowledge the effort you're putting in without demanding some immediate perfect outcome. The goal is just to keep the energy flowing in a positive direction and keep your stress levels low enough for conscious change to actually take root.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me, the psychological benefit of that shift. Why is this kindness so necessary for change?
Because when you speak kindly to yourself, something really beautiful happens in your nervous system. First, your mind relaxes. That is so crucial. Your emotional regulation improves because you're not fighting a war on two fronts, one against the world and one against yourself.
Right.
Your heart feels lighter, and most importantly, your ability to change becomes rooted in self-belief instead of, self-flagellation. Change takes a massive amount of energy. You cannot generate sustainable positive energy from a place of stress and self-criticism. It just doesn't work.
So self-compassion is the fuel.
It's the essential fuel that allows the logical planning part of your brain, that prefrontal cortex, to stay online for the long haul.
And that kind of internal grace that has to continue over time, which I think brings us perfectly to principle 3. Be patient with your progress.
Yes.
If the first one is about accepting ourselves right now, in this moment, this one seems to be about accepting ourselves across the whole journey.
That's a great way to put it. Because once we finally allow ourselves to try something new, what do we immediately expect?
Instant results.
Instant, dramatic, life-changing results. And this is where we have to normalize the nonlinear path. The expectation that improvement is a straight line, always going up at a perfect 45-degree angle. It's completely unrealistic. It's a fantasy manufactured by our quick-fix culture.
So we're really just dealing with a reality check here.
A big one. The sources remind us explicitly that improvement takes time. The path is jagged. Some days you'll feel a burst of energy and move fast. Other days, you'll feel slow. Some weeks you'll feel strong. Other weeks you'll be tired or distracted by, life.
And we have to just internalize that that's normal.
We have to. Life is not perfect. We are not perfect. And that is, in the words of one of the sources, completely okay. We have to give ourselves permission to be imperfect as long as we just keep showing up.
What's so useful here is how the material moves from that philosophy into actual actionable tools. It gives you internal scripts to use for those moments when you do hit a setback.
Yes.
This is real guidance for that moment you feel the slump or when your progress just seems to plateau.
And that plateau is the critical moment. That's when most people quit. They hit what some people call the plateau of latent potential, that period where you're putting in the effort, but you're not seeing any measurable results yet.
And you think, this isn't working.
This is a waste of time, I quit. The scripts are designed to help you push past that exact moment.
So what are the scripts given to us?
When you feel slow or stuck, the script is so simple, but it's really profound. It's okay. I am still moving. It validates that feeling of frustration, but it insists on the idea of minimal forward motion. It stops that all or nothing thinking that says, if I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all.
Okay. And what about when you make a mistake? When you really fall off the wagon?
The script for that is, I learned something, I will try again. It's an instant transformation. Failure stops being this, punitive thing that defines your identity and it just becomes a data point.
A piece of information.
A piece of information
Yeah.
is an immediate re-entry ramp back onto the path.
So the core takeaway from this is just so simple, but we forget it all the time in our, achievement-obsessed world. Progress is progress, even if it's tiny.
It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't need to be monumental. The persistence is the power.
Right. And that focus on internal growth on your own journey, that leads us right to the third principle in this whole mindset foundation. It's principle 9. Compare yourself only to yourself.
This is such a critical defensive measure in the modern world, especially with social media and constant instant communication.
Yeah, the danger of comparing ourselves to others is it's more intense now than it has ever been. We are constantly flooded with the highlight reels of everyone else's lives.
The promotions, the perfect vacation.
The seemingly effortless success. And we use that as a yardstick for our own reality, which is, by its very nature, messy and internal and full of doubt.
And the source material explains exactly why this is so destructive. When you look at other people, you're only seeing the outside. You're seeing the curated public version of them.
The brand.
The brand. You don't see their story, their sleepless nights, their self-doubt, their private struggles. You are comparing your messy, authentic internal life to someone else's polished external performance. It is a losing game every single time.
Because it's not even a fair comparison. You're comparing apples and, pictures of oranges.
Exactly. You're comparing two completely different dimensions of reality.
So we have to redefine our benchmark. We have to pull it away from that impossible external standard. If I'm sitting there feeling inadequate after scrolling through my phone or reading about a peer's success, who is the one person I should be measuring myself against?
The you from yesterday.
That's it.
That is the only valid comparison that gives you useful, actionable feedback. This takes all that overwhelming pressure of trying to achieve someone else's success, and it just simplifies it down into these micro improvements that are entirely within your control. It makes the goal immediate and achievable.
Okay, so how do we apply that in a practical sense? What are the criteria for this daily self-assessment? How do I actually know if I'm genuinely better than I was yesterday?
The criteria are deliberately simple. They're focused entirely on effort and learning, not on the outcome. So you ask yourself, are you a little better today? Did you choose to take that small step that you skipped yesterday? Are you trying just a little bit more than you thought you could? Are you learning something new? Even if that something new is just a mistake you now know not to repeat.
So if the answer to any of those is yes,
then improvement is happening. It doesn't matter if the change is visible to the outside world. It only matters that the internal trajectory is positive. And all of this mindset work we've just talked about, it's the prerequisite. It's the energy boost and the stress reduction you need for all the practical action we're about to get into.
that is the perfect transition, because once your mind is in a kinder, more patient, more internally focused place, then you can start moving into the actionable plan. This is where we talk about how to translate that positive intention into actual concrete motion. And it starts with principle 2. Start with one small goal.
And this directly tackles that problem of information overload, or maybe more accurately, action overload. Why does improvement feel so incredibly hard for so many people, even after they've made that internal decision to change?
Because they try to fix everything at once. They try to do a complete life overhaul. They make these huge, complicated plans. Starting Monday, I'm going to go from sitting on the couch to running 5 miles, writing 3 chapters of my book, and learning a new language.
And the cognitive load of that is just immense. Inevitably, you feel tired, you feel overwhelmed, and the sheer weight of the task just stops you within, 48 hours?
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
We have to understand the physics of starting something new.
Yeah.
Behavioral scientists call it activation energy.
Okay.
Think of it like launching a rocket. 90% of the fuel is burned just getting the thing off the launch pad, just overcoming inertia.
Yeah.
When your goal is huge, like write a novel, the activation energy you need is enormous. And your brain naturally resists that massive energy expenditure.
So the approach here is the total opposite of that high-effort ambition. It's the power of simplicity. It's about strategically choosing one small, easy goal that is specifically designed to require almost no activation energy.
Exactly. We are trying to make the cost of launching virtually zero. We want a goal that is almost laughably manageable. because the goal isn't the big outcome itself, not at first. The goal is just to win the game of starting.
And the examples in the sources are so good because they demonstrate this micro-commitment strategy perfectly. Can you give us a deeper look at some of those?
They're such powerful anchors.
Mm,
For example, read for 10 minutes a day, not a book a week. 10 minutes.
I can do that.
Anyone can do that. Take a 5-minute walk right after you wake up, not a 5-mile run, just 5 minutes. Learn 3 new words in English today. Drink 1 more glass of water than you did yesterday.
These aren't just small tasks. They're what you'd call tiny wins.
They are tiny wins. They let you feel successful immediately without draining your willpower, which we have to remember is a finite resource. It runs out over the day.
Okay, but explain the mechanism for us. If I just drink 1 more glass of water, that can feel so trivial. Why is that small goal so much more powerful than saying, I'm going to drink a gallon of water every single day?
That low barrier to entry is the absolute key to understanding the momentum effect. It's all rooted in dopamine regulation in your brain.
The motivation chemical.
The motivation chemical, yeah. When you complete a small, manageable task, that 5-minute walk, your brain releases a little shot of dopamine. It's the chemical associated with pleasure, reward, and motivation. And that tiny hit of positive reinforcement makes you want to repeat the action. Or, just as importantly, it gives you the energy to start the next small task.
So it's a self-perpetuating cycle of motivation.
Exactly. It's momentum. Small goals are powerful because they're easy to begin, which defeats procrastination, and they're easy to continue, which builds consistency.
And consistency, as we said before, is the ultimate measure of success here.
That's right, because that consistency is what turns these small, simple goals into strong, ingrained habits over time. The sources really hammer this home. Small goals become big changes when you do them again and again and again. It is the repetition, not the intensity, that delivers the compounding results in the long run.
That sets up Principle 5 so perfectly. Build good habits slowly. This takes that idea of consistency we were just talking about and applies it to building a whole new, stronger structure for your life, brick by tiny brick.
And here we get this really fine analogy, the seeds analogy, that speaks to patience and having trust in the process.
Okay.
Good habits are compared to seeds. When you plant them today, you start that 5-minute walk. They don't just burst out of the ground fully grown tomorrow morning. They grow slowly. They grow quietly under the surface where you can't always see the daily change. But if you keep tending to them with consistency, they grow surely over time.
I like that. It emphasizes that belief in the invisible work, the cumulative effect that's happening internally, even when you can't see the results yet.
Exactly.
Let's list some of the simple habits that the source material catalogs, but maybe let's talk about where they fit into a day. How do we integrate these little seeds without it just feeling like another to-do list?
Integration is everything. We're not just talking about abstract tasks. We're talking about foundational wellness and clarity. And you can often link them to routines you already have.
Like habit stacking.
A bit like habit stacking, yeah.
Yeah.
For example, waking up a little earlier. Not an hour earlier, maybe just 5 minutes. Just to give yourself some quiet space.
Okay.
Stretching your body right after you drink that first glass of water. Writing down 3 positive thoughts while your coffee is brewing. Organizing your desk for just 10 minutes before you finish work for the day.
These aren't heroic acts.
No, they're simple things. Saying thank you more often in your interactions. Organizing your schedule for the next day before you go to bed. Taking care of your body through a little bit of movement.
It sounds like organizational maintenance, but if you do it consistently, I can see how that would have a massive cumulative effect.
It absolutely does. And it's not just about getting tasks done. It's about creating what you might call a positive atmosphere for yourself to perform in. These little habits make your mind clearer because you've handled the small bits of chaos. They make your daily life easier because you're not constantly reacting to things.
You become more proactive.
You slowly create a stronger, more resilient person who is then capable of tackling bigger challenges later on. But the key takeaway is always the same. One habit at a time is enough. You don't need a revolution. You just need a gentle, consistent evolution.
Now, this is where we flip the script a little bit. Improvement is almost always framed as adding good things to your life. But Principle 6 reminds us that it's just as much about subtraction.
Remove small negative habits.
Improvement as subtraction.
This introduces the idea of strategically clearing the decks. We have to acknowledge that our cognitive bandwidth, our mental energy, is finite. If we spend all our resources, our willpower, our decision-making capacity, just wrestling with bad habits or compensating for them, we have no energy left for the good ones we're trying to build.
You have to clear the clutter to free up those resources.
You do. So removing a bad habit isn't just a moral victory. It's a strategic resource allocation decision.
What are some of the specific detrimental actions that we're encouraged to reduce?
The sources list several key time and energy drains. Many of them stem from, mindless scrolling or avoidance behaviors.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspects, spending too much time on your phone, especially first thing in the morning or late at night, comparing yourself to others, which links right back to Principle 9. Sleeping very late and messing up your whole circadian rhythm. Skipping foundational self-care like breakfast. Ignoring your health. Wasting time on things you don't even enjoy just because they're easy to access.
And crucially, the strategy here has to mirror the small steps approach we use for building habits. We're not aiming for instant perfect removal, are we? If I try to go cold turkey on checking my phone, I'm going to fail. Spectacularly.
Absolutely. The strategy of reduction is vital for sustainability. You don't have to stop completely today. You just choose one negative habit and you focus deliberately on reducing it, even by a tiny amount.
So if I usually spend 2 hours mindlessly scrolling, the goal is what? 1 hour and 50 minutes?
Yes, and that counts as progress. Why? Because you just broke the momentum of that negative cycle and you freed up 10 minutes of your decision-making capacity in your mental energy. That small reduction is so much more achievable and sustainable than trying for a complete, immediate stop.
Okay, so moving into the mechanisms for how we sustain all this effort and really start to gain momentum, let's look at Principle 4, learn from other people. This principle really broadens our definition of where knowledge comes from. It makes continuous improvement accessible no matter where you are.
It does. If we limit our idea of learning to just, say, formal classrooms or expensive courses, we miss 99% of the opportunities that are presented to us every single day. The framework emphasizes that teachers are all around us. We just often don't recognize them because they don't have a specific title or a certificate.
So what are some of these diverse sources that the material points to?
Well, they range from the obvious to the very personal. Learning can come from a book, a video, a conversation, a podcast like this one right now.
Right.
It can come from a story a friend tells you. Or, and this might be the most crucial teacher of all, it can come from a mistake you just made. The key insight is that every single interaction, every piece of media you consume, and every action you take is a potential data point for growth.
So if I see someone who's successful, I shouldn't try to just clone their entire life because that would violate the comparison principle we talked about.
Right.
But how do I extract the useful information without falling into that comparison trap? What's the process of observation here?
It's all about selective adaptation. You don't need to copy everything. The instruction is to observe what seems to be working for other people. Notice what inspires you, and then selectively take the lessons that are relevant to your own context and your current small goals.
So if a colleague manages to wake up early every day, I shouldn't try to copy their entire morning routine.
No. You might just ask, what is the single best element of that routine that I could borrow and just try for 2 days? It's about extracting relevant wisdom and making it fit your own unique journey.
And the payoff for that can be immediate and exponential. It's almost like finding a little cheat code for a complicated part of your life.
It can be. The sources highlight that potential impact. One small idea from another person, a single sentence, a new perspective on patience, a different way to organize your morning. That one idea can change your whole day. Or, over time, it could fundamentally reshape the trajectory of your entire life.
It's a constant low-stakes stream of inspiration that just keeps the engine running. Okay, now let's talk about internal motivation. Once you start taking these small steps and integrating these new ideas, how do you keep the momentum going when the novelty wears volumes?
This is so fundamental to behavioral science. It's a necessity of actually noticing and celebrating your progress. Most of us, we wait for some massive external validation, a promotion, a prize, hitting a huge weight loss goal before we allow ourselves to feel successful.
Right.
But by then, the motivational fuel tank is often running on empty, and people quit during that long, boring middle part of the journey.
So we need to create our own internal immediate recognition system, and it has to be tied specifically to our effort, not just the big outcomes. Where does this celebration fit into the behavioral habit loop?
This is where it all connects. The habit loop is cue, routine, and reward. The small step you take is the routine. The successful completion of that routine is the cue for the reward. The celebration, even if it's just a silent mental acknowledgement, is the reward. It generates that small but crucial shot of dopamine, and that dopamine hit is what anchors the habit into your brain. It makes it easier and more desirable to start the routine the next day. If there's no immediate reward, the brain just doesn't bother saving the habit. It's not worth the energy.
So we're intentionally engineering a positive feedback loop to encourage consistency. What are some of the specific examples of wins that we should be looking for and celebrating?
You have to look for the micro successes that are linked to the action itself. Did you wake up earlier today? Even if it was just by 3 minutes. Good job.
Yeah.
Did you start your small habit even though you felt tired and didn't want to? Well done. Did you try something difficult, like having an uncomfortable but necessary conversation? Be proud of that.
Yeah.
These are simple acknowledgments of effort and consistency, not just the outcome. Because at the end of the day, effort and consistency are the only things you can really control.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, we've started taking steps, we're learning from others, and we're celebrating our wins. But life happens. We're human. We're going to lapse.
Inevitably.
So we have to talk about the ultimate sustainability mechanism, which is Principle 10. Keep going, even when it's hard.
This is so critical.
Yeah.
Because temporary failure, or at least a temporary slowdown, is absolutely inevitable. The pursuit of perfection is the enemy of progress. We have to acknowledge that struggle will happen. There will be days when you feel tired or sad or slow. Maybe you hit the snooze button 5 times. Maybe you ate poorly for 3 days straight.
We've all been there.
We have all been there. And the source material reassures us. These hard days are a normal, temporary part of life that everyone experiences. They do not define your journey.
So what's the strategy for navigating those hard days? Do we just grit our teeth and push even harder to make up for lost time?
No, absolutely not. That's a recipe for burnout. And it reinforces this toxic idea that change has to be painful. The prescribed response is self-compassion. It links right back to Principle 1.
It all comes full circle.
It does. If today is a difficult day, you just acknowledge it. You rest a little, you breathe, you relax, and then you commit to beginning again tomorrow. The crucial lesson is that hard days do not stop your progress. They are merely temporary interruptions. They are blips, not barriers. Unless you let that lapse trigger all the negative self-talk that makes you quit entirely.
This really defines the final metric of success, doesn't it? If improvement isn't about speed, what is it about? How should we measure whether we're successfully implementing this whole framework?
It's about consistency, but redefined. Think of it less like you're an Olympic sprinter who has to run a perfect, nonstop race. Think of it more like you're a ship captain navigating across a vast ocean.
Okay.
That ship is being pushed off course by wind and waves 95% of the time. But you reach the destination not by staying on a perfectly straight line, but by constantly making small, consistent corrections to get back on course. If you can maintain the habit, even poorly, even slowly, you are succeeding. The person who consistently takes one small step is always going to be further ahead in the long run than the person who takes 10 massive steps once in a while but then burns out immediately. Consistency, defined as the speed of your recovery after a lapse. That's the only measure that really matters.
We've saved Principle 8 for its own section here because it feels like it's the literal engine. It's the energy reservoir for all the other 9 principles we've talked about.
It really is.
We need to talk about the necessity of Principle 8. Take care of your body and mind.
This establishes the crucial interdependence between the two. The sources state it very clearly and unequivocally. If the body feels weak, the mind feels tired. If the mind feels stressed, the body feels heavy.
They're not separate things.
They are a singular, unified system. You cannot expect high performance, mental clarity, or sustained willpower from a mind that is constantly having to compensate for an unhealthy body, or vice versa. The state of one directly impacts the function of the other.
Let's get into the specific mechanisms here. I mean, it sounds like common sense, right? Sleep well, drink water. But what's the deeper scientific reason why, say, hydration is so essential for self-improvement?
Because your cognitive function is highly dependent on your physical state. Your brain is about 75% water. Even minor dehydration can lead to measurable drops in concentration, memory recall, and, critically, your executive function.
Which is what exactly?
Executive function is your ability to plan and, crucially, to resist impulses. So when you're dehydrated or you haven't slept well, all of those difficult little habits we're trying to build, like resisting the urge to scroll on your phone or choosing to take that 5-minute walk, they become exponentially harder. Your prefrontal cortex is operating at a deficit.
So you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't take care of the basics first.
Completely. And the action points here are holistic. They address both mental stress and physical energy, and they're designed to be low effort so they don't violate that small steps rule.
So what are some of those specific, actionable steps for taking care of both systems?
They're very practical. They're intended as protective measures against burnout. Sleep enough, and the focus is on consistent sleep hygiene, not just the total number of hours. Drink water, making sure you're addressing that cognitive deficit we just talked about. Eat simple, healthy food when you can, giving your brain stable fuel instead of constant sugar spikes and crashes.
And for the mind, beyond the physical stuff like sleep and diet.
For the mind, we need calming techniques that can act as immediate resets during the day. Breathe deeply when you feel stressed. That activates the parasympathetic response we talked about way back in Principle 1.
Right.
Give yourself small breaks, micro breaks away from your screen every hour. Spend time in nature, even if it's just for 2 minutes. That has been shown to reduce rumination and improve focus.
2 minutes. That's another one of those laughably small goals.
It is. And then socially, talk to people who make you feel calm and supported, not the people who drain your energy or increase that temptation for external comparison.
That focus on simple acts like deep breathing or 2 minutes in nature, it really does lower the barrier to entry for mental and physical wellness. You don't need a spa retreat or an expensive gym membership. You just need intention.
Precisely. And if we synthesize the ultimate outcome of Principle 8, it's this. A healthy mind inside a healthy body acts as the ultimate leverage point. It doesn't just help you improve. It makes the entire self-improvement journey, all 10 of these principles combined, so much easier to execute and to sustain.
It's the energy reservoir that keeps a lapse from turning into a permanent halt.
That's it exactly. Hashtag tag outro. So we've covered the entire framework. We've moved from that internal grace to external action and then right back again to self-care. Looking back on it all, the core message really remains that improvement is a long, quiet, and a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
It's not a frantic, painful rush to some fictional finish line. It's the steady accumulation of small, intentional acts.
Let's do a quick review of the 10 points one last time, just as a final integrated checklist for everyone listening to see how they all fit together as one cohesive system.
Let's do it. You start with internal grace. Be kind to yourself, which is Principle 1, and be patient, which is Principle 3. Then you define your own trajectory. Compare only with yourself, Principle 9.
Right.
Then you initiate movement by choosing one small goal. That's Principle 2. You sustain that movement by building good habits slowly, Principle 5, while you strategically remove small negative habits, which is 6.
Okay.
You fuel the whole process by learning from others, that's 4, and caring for your body and mind, which is 8. You maintain your momentum by celebrating your small wins, Principle 7. And finally, you define success through your own resilience. Keep going, even when it's hard, Principle 10.
What's so powerful about this framework when you lay it all out like that is that it instantly affirms your own strength. It explicitly says you are strong, you are growing, just by the very act of engaging with these ideas.
It does.
One of the sources makes a point of saying you are improving even now, just by listening to this discussion.
And that completely shifts the paradigm, doesn't it? It changes self-improvement from being this daunting task you have to start in the future to an ongoing state of being. The decision to just listen, to engage with the material.
Yeah.
That is the first step. That action has already happened.
And that leads us right to our provocative closing thought. Something for you to take with you right now. Since that decision to improve is already active, since this journey has already begun for you, we ask you this. What is the single smallest step you can take based on today's framework?
It could be anything.
Anything, whether it's drinking one more glass of water, using one positive phrase for yourself instead of a harsh one, or just taking a 2-minute break to breathe deeply. What can you do in the next 60 minutes?
The power isn't in the size of the task. The power is in the immediate execution of the smallest, simplest choice. Keep moving forward no matter how small that movement is. Trust the process of accumulation.
Until next time, keep improving.